Welcome to today's episode of Digital Transformation in Swine Health. I'm Jim Eadie, joined by Chris Bomgaars, founder and CEO of EveryPig. Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jim. Always good to be with you.
I love the evolution in your technology and what you've done in the industry. So, if we backtrack a little bit, how has EveryPig evolved in the past year, Chris? What's new in terms of features, adoption, or even producer feedback?
Yeah, so our industry is driven by profits and losses. So I think it's probably first worth noting producers in the US have been making money, which is great. When they're making profits, they're more optimistic, they're looking ahead to the future, and it benefits everyone. So, especially software providers. So, we're really happy to see our industry making some money, and we think that it's been a big driver for the adoption of EveryPig. I would say, in regards to producer feedback, each new customer that we bring on brings some unique processes with their business. And for the most part, the processes are difficult to change. So, as a software company, we've got to really adapt to their way of doing things to some extent. Since we've seen a lot of growth this year in terms of the number of companies on board EveryPig, we've really had to focus a lot of our development efforts on customer requests. So, that's been one change for us. I'd say some of those examples are we brought on board one of the largest producers of antibiotic-free pigs in the country. We already had the ability to separate antibiotic-free groups inside the app, but given their scale, they had some special needs that some of our other customers hadn't brought up to us before. So we've really improved the robustness of that antibiotic-free tracking. We've also enhanced our treatment protocol functionality. So we're helping to ensure that when veterinarians are making treatment decisions, that they get communicated to the right people and actually get administered. So getting the right medication to the right pigs at the right time. And I think the last example that comes to mind will relate to AI, which I know we're going to talk a little bit about. But we've been building software for almost 10 years now, which has led to producing hundreds of thousands of lines of code. And it's really impossible to remember all of the logic at this point. And the more customers you have on board, the more questions about functionality that you're going to receive. And that's been a real major constraint for software businesses in the past, is just keeping up with all those customer inquiries all day. Fortunately, we've been using an in-app messaging service for a number of years that used to users could go type a question in and it would get diverted to whoever was sort of on call, and then a human would have to respond. But now that same service allows us to upload. We've uploaded our user manual to train an AI bot, and they have that AI bot sitting inside the app that's answering customer support questions 24/7. And so that's really helped to kind of lift the burden of customer support so we can focus on talking with our customers about their needs and driving out new features.
That's great, Chris. I'm going to dive into AI a little bit. Just want to backtrack for a second, just for anybody who hasn't heard of EveryPig, the quick intro, how can it help in operation?
Yeah, so EveryPig is an app that's focused on wean to finish production, which has really been an overlooked area of our industry for a long time. The core of the platform really is digitizing your daily checkups. So those paper barn sheets that are sitting around the countryside, instead of having those pieces of paper, caregivers are completing daily checkups inside the app. And then we're presenting that information to production managers, veterinarians in real time so they can start to spot problems before they appear on a mortality report.
So you mentioned the AI integration with the bot. Now, in general, where do you see AI having the most immediate impact on swine production in the next 2 to 3 years, Chris?
Well, I've got a bit of a tendency to be early on some of my timelines. So please don't hold me to 2 to 3 years. But I think when I kind of look out, in the next 5 years, I do see some major changes happening, especially in our industry. I think one of the first ones that comes to mind is really the democratization of data analytics. AI, I think, is going to make it incredibly easy to query the data that you're collecting inside of your company without needing to go through a bunch of people and wait for new reports to be created. So in my opinion, the key there is going to be to make sure that your company is actually collecting data that matters. And then you're going to be able to feed it into an AI, query that in natural language, and really have access to data without needing to go through a bunch of additional steps that it might require today. I got a couple more thoughts on that. I guess one of them is predictive versus responsive. I think we're going to move to a much more predictive industry versus looking at historical mortality reports, historical closeout reports. We see the top producers really transitioning from those historical reports to starting to recognize things like a change in daily water consumption for all their pig groups when new symptoms are being reported. Now, that's not necessarily AI, but collecting and feeding the data into AI allows for services like we have inside the app of mortality forecasting, which is a machine learning algorithm that dives through every open group of pigs and every pig every night, and it finds correlations in the data with mortality events. So we can warn our users, hey, the data indicate that there's going to be a mortality issue here in the next week or so, unless you take action. So they're able to treat pigs earlier so they don't show up on those mortality reports. Lastly, I think labor efficiency is going to be a big one. As you know, we're still hearing a lot about the industry being plagued with a labor shortage, whether it's on-farm workers or rural veterinary shortage. Everyone feels overworked, and we hear a lot about staffing challenges. So I'd say AI is already helping to automate a lot of communication. I think that's only going to accelerate. So some examples of that, you can have software that helps save your business from phone calls, text messages, and trips to the farm so you can be more efficient with your labor force. Inside EveryPig, we're already sending out somewhere over 100,000 text messages, in-app messages, and emails every week for our customers. And it's really hard to put a number on how many hours of labor is that saving them from those phone calls, farm visits, and messaging. So that might not be AI, but when you start applying AI to your systems, I think the result's going to be the same.
So what about challenges that you're hearing from producers, Chris, and how's EveryPig addressing these?
Well, the big one, labor, I just mentioned. I'd say adoption of new technology is another one. We've got a big generational shift happening in our industry. You and I used to be the young guys on the block. We're not anymore, which is great to see. We're seeing a lot of the next generation start to take leadership positions. But adoption of technology still is a challenge. We'll see a lot of times leadership. You'll have some individuals in an organization that want to start new technologies. They want to digitize some of their manual processes, but they'll tell us they don't necessarily know how to get change implemented in their company. So I think it's our job as innovators to really learn how to better communicate both, the benefits of our services. What is it saving them in terms of time, money, effort, and then helping make that transition onto your technology easier. One way we've done that is really by making the product incredibly user friendly. So that all starts like for an app that starts with smart design. Smart means simple, which is really the hard part. And secondly, adding team members. This year we've added Brian Doyle to our team, who's got experience both working with a large pork producer in the industry and also a large software company in the industry. So he's got a lot of industry know-how, and that's been a big help in making onboarding as seamless as possible. We've heard about software rollouts in some companies in our industry taking as long as 2 years, which seems crazy to me. We've just been able to onboard a customer of over 1 million pigs a year in about 3 weeks. So I think those are some of the things that have been challenges and some of the ways that we're overcoming those.
You guys keep growing and adapting to the challenges ahead. As we look ahead again, how do you see technology reshaping the role of data and herd health management?
Good question. I've heard a lot of people in our industry say that they're collecting enough or even too much data in their company. I really have a hard time believing that's true. From what we've seen, one of the real challenges is they don't know what to do with the data, or it takes too much analysis and effort to really pull value out of it. So one example of that is like collecting symptomatic and water consumption data, for example. It's hard to imagine that every company shouldn't be collecting that on all their pig groups. I think the key is packaging it in a way that it's really easy to digest by the people that are making the decision. So it's got to be digestible and actionable.
So, Chris, thanks for sharing your insights today. For those who want to learn more, where's the best place to connect with you and the EveryPig team?
Yeah, just go to www.everypig.com. You can take a look at our site there. You can request a demo, and we'd be happy to connect.
Well, thanks again, Chris, and thanks to our listeners for tuning in to the digital transformation in swine health, a conversation with EveryPig.
Thanks, Jim.